are as a people inherently and historically opposed to secret society, opposed to secret oaths, opposed to secret proceedings, secret proceedings. No official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
What's going on, everyone? We have a return guest, Kenneth Sterling, and I know a lot of people out there are going a little nuts with the world right now with the pandemic and just 2020 and 2021 in general. So today I wanted to do a more positive, uplifting podcast, hopefully, and get into some spirituality. We are covering meditation. How you doing, Kenneth?
I'm doing great. How are you doing this morning?
Pretty good, man. I guess
It's good to be back.
yeah, definitely, man. It's been a minute. I mean, we both of us, I know, are hard workers, and it just wasn't working out. Wasn't meant to be, I guess. Not
Yeah,
not till
now
now.
is the time.
Yep, exactly, man. You can't force it. But I guess I just wanted to honestly start from the beginning. Like, what in general is meditation, man?
Well, meditation is a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and depending upon who you ask, it can vary. Of course, like when you tell most laymen about meditation, they automatically think of somebody sitting, upright in certain positions for hours, just with their eyes closed. But honestly, it's a whole lot more than just that. So we'll start with that, like a Zen meditation or seated meditation, and that's exactly what it is. It's somebody sitting, and they don't move, and it's pretty much detaching your mind from your body, allowing your body to be whatever it is, and not worrying about it, not allowing it to take any of your focus, and doing something with the mind. So, like in Zen meditation, it is more of a focused meditation. You are usually doing something. Either it's a single pointed thing where you're having, I'll just discuss some of the variations, like counting, like just counting to 100, say, or 30. And every single time that a new thought comes into your mind, it starts over again. As far as like Zen meditation, it's usually very rigid, and the goal is to kind of get the mind under control and under your facilities. So it's your body, of course, has discomfort, and part of the Zen way is to embrace that discomfort and experience it for what it is, and just allow it to be. So it's more about getting the mind under control, like I said. So like they'll go around, and if somebody's fallen asleep or whatever, they usually have a stick that they pop them on the back with to keep them awake. But so that's one form, is like Zen is, and it doesn't have to be counting. It could be something that you're having the mind perform or do, and then when it strays, you kind of go back to what you're doing.
You go back to
Um,
one, like you said.
yeah, yeah, and it can be counting, or it could be focusing on a particular, um, like breathing in all of the negativity and sadness and anger and pain, and then breathing out love and contentment and peace into the world. I mean, there's all sorts of things that people do during meditation. But so that's like that's a focused meditation. There's also other types of meditation, like which are one of my favorite, like awareness meditation, where literally you just sit there and you are aware of all the physical sensations that you're feeling, everything around you, the sounds of the birds and the people and the automobiles and the earth itself, the wind, and there is no focus. You just are aware. And thoughts will come and go, and you just analyze them and see what they are. You don't hold any attachment to any of them. You allow them to be whatever they may and let them come and go as they please. And you just are the observer. During something like that, it definitely brings attention to the fact, and I'm sure you've heard the term the I, or the one that sees, or in Christianity, the I am.
Right.
Pretty much that you're aware of these thoughts coming and going,
The
and
the
it's pretty much asking the question, who is it that is aware?
right. Because I have a that's something like when you were talking about the Zen meditation as far as starting over from 100, like counting up to 100 and starting back to one. Um, Someone like me, I struggle with intrusive thoughts a lot,
Yeah,
and I don't know. I mean, obviously not the strictness of getting beat with a stick, but like the actual counting up to 100, I feel like that would work specifically for me with intrusive thoughts. And I think that kind of ties into what you're saying is like who or what is, I guess, saying these intrusive thoughts, like your subconscious, I
yeah.
would imagine.
Well, let me go over just a couple more types of meditation. Just different types, and I actually have a nice tip that a lot of people use sometimes to help silence that inner voice that keeps coming back. There's actually some yogic methodology that people use sometimes to help quiet their inner voice, especially if it's intrusive and interfering with the things that you do and you at work and your emotional situations, because these thoughts pop in and almost always they're negative.
Right.
And they get you thinking about other things, and before you know it, you're starting to get angry, and even in a situation where like nothing's really going on sometimes. So
Yeah, it could be
there
it
are
could
there
be
are
like
some things that,
overwhelming.
yeah, and it's like a snowball effect. Once these things kind of start, they're what they do. The next thing you know, you're just getting angry, and then other people are interacting with you, and you're like sharply replying to them, and
Yep.
yeah. So before we go into that, let me just go over types of meditation. So there's like those two, awareness and like single-mindedness, and there's also like meditative practices, like in martial arts and things like that. You'll see a lot of monks walking in single file lines down trails and things like that. That's actually like a walking meditation where they're meditating while they're walking. And I mean, that is, a lot of people aren't aware that they're even meditating, but just the act of walking in itself, one foot after another, just slowly, where's the mind going? What is it doing? What are you experiencing? And that's kind of a mixture of the two, really, because you're not really like forcing your mind to be one pointed, but you're focused on what you're doing. But then you're also aware of all the sensations that you're feeling, of all the things around you. So that's another type. And then there's like another form is like a mantra meditation, and things like Transcendental Meditation, and there's some yogic and alchemic and like I guess occultic uh, meditations that kind of fall into that. And with that, you are putting yourself into a particular state of mind or a state of awareness and opening yourself up to experiencing things beyond the normal realm of reality. So
Right.
transcendental things, or
Like
and honestly,
I did do like I did back in the day get into candle gazing, which is I guess
yeah, yeah,
occultic. It's more Western, you know.
yeah, that would definitely follow into that because you really get into a transcendental state. Some people do black mirror gazing, or
Right, like scrying.
there's other things with there's other things with some sort of vessel and water.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some mirror gazing people do. Um, I actually have a couple that kind of fall into that slightly. I guess there would be, well, some of those, the other ones would be like contemplative meditations where you don't really focus, but you're thinking about a particular subject and examining something. And I can go into that later as well.
Okay.
But that's just kind of a general overview of some of the, and there's there's so many, there's thousands of forms of meditation. So,
Right.
I mean, it
Um.
would be impossible to go over all of them. If you want, I'll go back to, we were discussing the inner voice and the mind,
Uh-huh.
and you were saying that you have difficulty sometimes with that becoming overwhelming, or
Yeah.
changing your
Definitely.
mood and stuff like that.
Yeah, like intrusive thoughts, definitely.
So, I mean, of course, it's completely natural. All human beings have this inner voice, at
Right.
least that I'm aware. But getting it under control is a difficult process. I really never, I spent like maybe the first 20 or so years of my life, never paid any attention to it. And in that respect, I'm probably allowed it to control my life way more than it should have. I've given it way more power. Because, like we said, you think about things and these things pop up. It almost always is something negative. It's critical of other people. Even like little things, like you're just sitting in a car and somebody walks by and it's like, oh, look at that fat person,
Yeah.
or judgmental things that aren't nice. And then your normal conscious mind is like, yeah, that's not nice.
Right.
And then sometimes it'll agree with it and things like. But then in your relationship and interaction with other people, sometimes it doesn't work as well. You'll be talking with somebody and things get a little escalated, maybe like with your spouse or girlfriend, and it reminds you of things in the past, like, oh, remember they said this or they did this,
Yeah.
and then the next thing you know, you're becoming emotional, your physiological responses are kicking in, and you're ready to fight, and like they're not aware of all of these thoughts that you're thinking, and so they're just like in a normal everyday thing, and like next thing you know, you're like almost yelling at them, and they're like, what's going on here? But so I started getting into yoga in my early 20s, and I really started enjoying it, and I had a bunch of like older yoga books that get into the neurological system, and
Like the
because
science
yoga,
behind it.
yeah, yoga, most people don't realize what it is they're doing, but you're training your body to be, of course, supple and flexible and things like that. But you're kind of cleansing your neurological system and opening all of this up completely. That's kind of the whole chakra thing, um, with the third eye and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
You get to a point, especially if you're living a clean, healthy lifestyle, and you're not putting all this stuff in, where you're actually like, I think we talked about the pineal gland in our last podcast.
Right.
You're actually decalcifying that and kind of breaking blockages that are preventing your neurological system from flowing freely and all of that.
Right.
So with it, you get a clearer mind and clearer physical reactivity and things like that. But there was a thing in there talking about this inner voice, and most people, of course, feel the need to fight against it. And that's actually the opposite of what they suggest. Um, because you can fight against it, much like the Zen meditation. They just start over. It's like, okay. And eventually the mind kind of succumbs to the way of what you want to do, and you eventually are able to get to 100 without it interfering. But they don't fight against it,
Right.
because
See,
fighting against it actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've noticed.
it gives it more energy.
I've noticed when I have fought against it too, it just keeps repeating the same thing. So
Yeah.
it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, what are those la la la, I can't hear you?
Yeah. Yep.
So, in this book, the suggestion was to just turn your attention towards it.
Mhm.
And when you notice that that inner voice is in saying something, stop whatever you're doing and just pay attention to it. And like a lot of times, it'll start it. You know, you'll hear it going, whatever it's saying or doing. And like if you don't respond and if you don't fight, oftentimes it's like, oh, okay, and it just kind of goes away, and then it'll come back.
Right.
But like if you make that a part of your regular daily practice, whenever you notice, and you don't have to stop whatever you're doing, but just focus your attention towards it. Like it actually starts coming less and less prevalent, and you honestly you'll get to a point where there's periods of time where it's not even there.
Right.
And then if you continue this, and this isn't for everyone, but um, it actually worked for me, where you really don't have much of an inner voice. Like personally, I really don't have one, but
Right.
every now and then I will be doing something, and it'll pop up, and it's like, ooh, I haven't heard from you in a while, and you focus your attention on it, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I'm not going to talk right now,
Yeah.
and it just goes away naturally. So that's one thing that I would suggest people try if they're having trouble with that. And of course, doing all of these one-minded techniques and stuff like that can be beneficial as well. Now, personally, I don't know if it just never really clicked with me, like the counting or the Zen meditation.
Right.
I get what it's there for, you know, harnessing the mind and having it under your control and things like that. But much like a lot of other people, I don't have a lot of time, you
Yeah.
know, and people that are doing these Zen retreats and stuff like that, that is what they're doing for the day or for the next week is doing the Zen meditation.
Right.
So
Because
they
they're
have
on
the
like,
8 hours.
yeah, they're on vacation time.
Yeah. So with me personally, it's like, okay, I only have a very limited amount of time. What do I want to focus on? What am I going to get the most benefit from? And so anybody listening, I would suggest trying some of these different techniques. Find what you have affinity towards, what makes you feel good, and what is it that you find most beneficial. You know, what's your goal? Are you looking to remain calm? Are you looking to harness your mind so that you can use it for other things? And try these things. There's no harm in trying any of these. And worst case scenario, it's not for you. And then you can try something else.
Right. Um. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'll send you a video. I seen it the other day, and it almost was like synchronicity. And it just when you were talking about the inner voice stuff, a lot of this. I caught this little bit of an interview of this guy talking about schizophrenics and how they have that intrusive voice, but obviously, like, I'm not schizophrenic. It's not 24/7, but sadly for some of those people, it is. But he went on this whole next level and tied it into like the archons. You ever heard of them? And like Gnosticism?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not too familiar. I have heard the term though.
Yeah, it gets crazy that they're like kind of like interdimensional entities that like they use intrusive thoughts and that inner
Yeah,
intrusive voice, and when you react to it, they absorb that energy. And he even got into the physical level of like all these schizophrenics because he was like a psychiatrist or something in a hospital with in the schizophrenic ward, and he was like they would all be like exhausted in the morning, you know,
yeah.
because they had been responding to these things. But I don't know that
It's kind of
it just
kind of like the interdimensional beings and the loosh. You know, they hover the crafts above the earth and kind of soak up all of that negative energy.
right.
Something like that, kind of.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. I don't know why it just made me think of that. But you were talking
Yeah,
about
honestly,
oh, go on. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say schizophrenia is something that I've always had an interest in, just from like a metaphysical perspective, because doctors and things like that really only treat it from a psychological perspective, and they prescribe different medications and stuff like that, and it's really not effective hardly at all. So I've actually had some conversations with some psychiatrists, and of course, they're regular old school doctors, and I've had some where I've kind of blown their minds a little bit, asking them about connections to the metaphysical and the things like that, and like I actually had one in particular that we talked probably for an hour and a half one day about all of that, and he had never really considered it, because a lot of these schizophrenics say things sometimes that could be taken slightly premonitory and stuff like that, and it's like
Right.
it makes you, if you stop and pay attention to it, it's like, okay, are they just crazy? Are they hearing things, or are they experiencing maybe another realm of reality that we're not? Are they tapped into another dimension and these things are just flowing over? I don't know. To me, that was always super interesting, though.
Right. Yeah, I will definitely send you that clip though. Like this person you were talking about was like a doctor or something.
Yeah, he was a psychiatrist, so
Was
and honestly, he would
was
prescribe medications and stuff like that. But they, a lot of people don't even realize it. They still do, like shock therapy.
oh, for real?
It's Oh yeah, yeah. They call it something else. It's some form electroconvulsive therapy, I believe is the medical term.
Wow.
But this was in New England, and being a Southern-born gentleman, was not. It's not as prevalent in the South, but
Right.
I would imagine much like California areas and stuff like that, New England. Yeah, it's still under, and I didn't know, and I mean some of these patients and stuff, especially over long periods of time where they put the electrodes and stuff like that, you actually have indentions, like little half-inch deep circles on your side of your heads and stuff where they do this. And I mean, the people that they've done it to, some of them said it has been beneficial. So,
Yeah.
and they're willing. It's not like the old days where they just grab you and strap you down to a table. I mean, these are
Right.
willing participants. So,
They
I
probably
will
they
say
probably
though,
feel desperate at that point if they resort to that, you know.
yeah, and honestly, it does have a lot of side effects as far as curving your emotional response and your personality and stuff like that. It kind of gives you this flat affect, I believe they call it,
Yeah.
and so I mean, there's definitely some negative sides to it, but
Well,
so what were you gonna ask me a moment ago?
was he like did the doctor have like any form of spirituality or religion or anything to even
No,
consider it?
he was strictly a man of science,
Yeah.
um, but he had in all of his years heard about things like that, so he kind of looked into it a little bit, but yeah, if you're not a spiritual person and believe in the metaphysical and dabble in it,
Right.
you pretty much just discard it immediately as voodoo, mumbo jumbo.
Woo woo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Um. So you were talking earlier about mantras and stuff. Now like I had actually listened to the other day. I've been hooked on Art Bell here recently. Um,
Yeah.
and he had these people on that were teaching him a mantra. It's a hue, which is like a tone, like a hue, and it's actually
Yeah.
it's like the oldest name for like God, like basically through like Sumerians and stuff, and I didn't even know it, you know. Um,
And that would you say Q?
Hugh, yeah, Hugh, and
Oh,
I
okay.
guess that's where like literally the word human comes from. Is it means God man. Um,
Hmm.
but I know
Yeah, I've actually never heard of that.
a lot of people use like Om and then like Hugh. Like I was just curious, like what do you think about that? Like maybe have you ever used any actual like verbal tones and um
Yeah. So mantras, like you said, sometimes sounds, and sometimes people actually speak the sounds, especially like in Om meditation. They believe that manifesting that vibration physically into the universe has effects that like extend out throughout the entire universe. That anything you say kind of moves and just doesn't stay within Earth, but goes forever, and affects everything as it goes along. So Om, a lot of times they believe is that primal creative sound that represents God and all of the creation, and there's stories and things like that that was the sound that was used to create and bring all things into existence and stuff like that. But personally, and you can use not just a word, but sometimes people do phrases or honestly, in some ways, like even Catholics that do All Fathers and you know
Hail Mary.
Hail Marys and stuff like that.
Yeah.
In a way, that's a mantra meditation because they're not just doing it once. It's like your priest says, okay, you've sinned, and you got to do 20 Hail Marys and 25 All Fathers. You go in and you're repeating these things over and over and over again.
And you know
and whether they
something, man? I've never put two and two together. Like I always just I don't know, like had like a negative like outlook, like oh, what foolishness, what brainwashing, you know? And it's like if you actually put it like how you stated it just now, I never put two and two together. That it's almost essentially a mantra.
Yeah, it really is, and maybe that's what it is. The whole purpose of it is like, okay, you're not going to work on your mind. You're stuck in the physical. You're sinning, so you're aware that you're sinning. So here, spend this chunk of time getting into that deeper level and connecting with the divine. It's pretty much almost like a forced version of it. Penance. So back to what you had originally asked about the mantra. One of probably my favorite forms of mantra meditations is Transcendental Meditation, and worldwide it's probably the most popular form of meditation. It started back in the 60s to become really popular and prevalent. Mahesh Yogi was the one who brought it to America. And, nowadays it's definitely commercialized and a lot of celebrities are proponents of it and things like that. But out of all the ones that I've tried, it's the easiest, simplest mantra meditation. And I can actually teach it to you guys. If you want to discuss it, though, beforehand, we can get into it a little more.
Yeah,
on what it is and things like that.
We got all the time in the world, dude.
So with mantra meditations, at least transcendental, what you do is you repeat a 2-syllable word. And I think some of them, for older people, I think they have a third. Now, there is a whole ceremonial aspect to it, and things like that. I actually was inducted into Transcendental Meditation, actually, where you live in Kentucky. There's the Maharishi Peace Palace, and a friend of mine was really, really wanted me to do it, and he actually sponsored me, because, of course, they charge for it. It's an organization, and in some ways now, like I said, it's commercialized, so it's definitely about money, and you can't just be really willing to do it. You got to have your money and all that in place.
Right.
But so I got into it. I was brought into it there, and they're very traditional about it. They keep everything the way that Maharishi taught them.
It's legit.
So there's a little ceremony, yeah. There's a ceremony and all that, and then you're given a mantra, and it's different for each person depending upon their age. I think that's what it's. There's like 30 of them total, and depending upon what age and sex you are, depends on which mantra you get. But so the whole point of it is you get yourself into a state, and once you start repeating these mantras, you actually physiologically, and they've done studies on this. Transcendental meditation is probably the most studied form of meditation. They themselves keep these huge 600-page books, and there's probably like 20 of them in a volume, and you can get them and stuff like that. But they're all studies from like the 60s on of physiological effects and things like that. But so what it does is you know, you're in certain brainwaves right now, and then like during sleep you're in another form of, you know, you got alpha, beta, theta, and stuff like that. What it does is it goes through these different subtle levels, and you actually go into like the theta waves, where you're almost like you're sleeping and REM is happening, but you are still awake and conscious.
Wow.
So there's a lot of, I'm not going to get into the whole science of that, but you pretty much are putting yourself into a transcendental state. And
I guess almost
yeah,
kind of
so
like either like kind of like almost like sleepwalking, or like, because you said it's like REM but you're still awake essentially, right?
yeah, I mean, as and it's more in REM in the physical state, like the things that are occurring to your body,
Right.
the repair and kind of the I guess the way that, you know, when you sleep, supposedly everything kind of gets organized and filed for the day and sorted for long term and
Mm-hmm.
short term memory and things like that. Supposedly a lot of that kind of happens, and they have like an analogy they use where like it's a pebble being thrown into a lake, and you kind of go further and further down until you get to that bottom, and then the pebble, once it's on the bottom, it just sits there and it's at peace. And but then they also have this other analogy that they like to use about dipping a spoon in honey. So you dip it in, and then when it comes back out, it's coated in the honey. So when you come out of a transcendental meditation, all of those qualities and things that exist down in those levels, you bring back into your life.
The positive
And
is stuck to you.
yeah, that peace, that just clarity. And of course, they suggest doing it twice a day, in the mornings and the evenings, usually like a 20-minute session. But if you want, I can kind of walk you through a basic transcendental meditation. And this is something, of course, that's they want you to only do through them. You know,
Right.
you have to be initiated into the transcendental meditation. But
So
I'm not gonna.
little bit of a sneak peek.
Yeah. And honestly, this is the process that they use. I'm gonna give like just a generic mantra, and that's the thing about a mantra is it's a nonsensical word. It's something that you wouldn't attach anything to. So, unlike like the Catholic penance and stuff like that, it's really doesn't mean anything. Because if you have some sort of meaning, you're bringing all of those preconceived notions and memories and stuff into the meditation,
Right.
and they don't want any of that.
Dogma kind of
So,
like.
yeah. So here's a basic transcendental meditation. So you find you can do it seated, you can do it lying down. They prefer seated because lying down is definitely more comfortable and it's a lot easier to fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unlike the Zen meditations, transcendental meditation, if you fall asleep, that is perfectly fine. And they actually have a process, and I'll go over that, of like, okay, you're meditating, you get so deep and so comfortable and relaxed, you fall asleep. You wake back up, um, they just have you go back into your meditation for about 5 more minutes, and then you can finish. The way that they believe, and I think it's kind of cool, is like if you get into that state and you get so relaxed and you sleep, you apparently needed that.
Right.
So, and there is always the risk of that, and your perception of everything around you kind of changes in time and all that. So it is good to set an alarm because it's hard to. There's two ways you can do it. You can either like wear a wristwatch, and they actually suggest this, and just keep looking. You kind of open your eyes for a second. I find that to be very distracting, and there's something special to me, anyways, when you're meditating, having your eyes closed for an extended period of time, and then when you open them, like everything is bright and colorful and vivid. And if you keep opening them to peek at a watch or something, I kind of feel it messes that up a little bit. And I'm
Right.
sure it's just something physiological as far as, keeping your eyes closed. That's one thing
But
when you
yeah, I would
open them back
imagine
up.
I would imagine too, like a lot of people would be using a stopwatch on their phone, and just that unnatural like LED would definitely throw off. You know.
Yeah. So what I usually do is I'll set like an alarm for the full 20 minutes. And then I put the phone in a location where I know where it is, where when it goes off, um, I don't even open my eyes. You just, like on a normal cell phone, you just press any button and it snoozes it for like 5 minutes or something like that. So that's usually what I do so I don't have to open my eyes. Because there is a period where you're coming out of the meditation. Because you get into those deeper states and they, of course, tell you to always come out of it properly. And they have even have this little story about Maharishi saying something about, well, what if your house is on fire? And he says something about, well, he'll wait his 2 minutes to come out of his meditation, and then he'll leave the house.
Haha.
I think it's, just putting the importance of it. Of course, I mean, if you were in danger or something at that point, get out of the house. But
Yeah.
so if you want, yeah, I'll go through just a basic transcendental
Yeah.
meditation.
Most def, man. Sounds cool.
Okay, so like I said, laying or sitting, preferably sitting, comfortable. Check your temperature. I mean, make sure it's not too cold. If it's too cold, get yourself a little blanket. Just so you're comfortable, because you are going to be sitting there for the next 20 minutes. And make sure you don't got to pee. Make sure you're in an area where um, there's no distractions and stuff like that. Now, you can do it. Like, okay, I'm getting ready to go on a bus or something, or a train, and I'm going to be here for the next 30 minutes. You can do transcendental meditation right there. Um, it's just you'll experiencing sounds and stuff like that, and there might be something crazy that will make you come out of it. But I mean, sometimes you just can't help it. You just do the best you can. So get your timer or whatever, and when you feel that you are ready and comfortable, you can begin. So the way they have this sorted out is it's 20 minutes. So the first minute you just sit there with your eyes closed, and you don't start the mantra immediately, and your thoughts will come and go, and you just experience them for whatever they are. You recognize them and let them go. Recognize them and let them go. You don't fight anything or anything like that. You just allow them to be. So then that minute kind of allows your mind to settle, your body to settle, and over time, when you do this multiple times, your body starts to realize, okay, I'm getting ready to meditate. It's kind of like a physiological cue. So after that minute, you allow your mantra to begin. Now, me personally, I will usually just once consciously say the mantra, and then the mantra starts happening. So here's one thing, and it took me a while to figure it out. And your mantra repeats. You allow it to repeat whatever speed that it does. Sometimes it's fast, where it's back to back, boom, 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 boom. Sometimes it's slow, boom, boom, boom. A lot of transcendental meditationers, in the beginning, they kind of complain of like a slight headache or something like that. And if you go to these centers, that's the first question. Are you allowing the mantra to come on its own? Or are you forcing it? And if you force it, I mean, you're doing the meditation wrong. And that's where, for 20 minutes, you're going to be forcing something. And, I mean, that definitely isn't good. So, for the sake of this, I've created a nonsensical, just so I don't get into the proprietary intellectual property of Transcendental Meditation. I'm not going to use one of theirs, but I use, when I teach other people, Zhendo, and that's just Zhendo, 2-syllable word, and so you'll start it. Just say that one time in your mind, and then know that it's going to be repeating. So allow it to Zhendo, 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 and it repeats. And are you still there?
Yeah. So you,
Okay,
you
just making
just
sure.
you essentially find the rhythm that feels most comfortable to you saying that,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, you allow it to be whatever it is. And so sometimes, like I said, it'll be fast, sometimes slow. But now that mind will come in and bring other thoughts in. So whenever you're like doing your meditation and something comes into your mind, and you'll start thinking about it. Once you realize that you're thinking about something else, you go back to the mantra. You don't force any of the thoughts away. They will drop away. When you come back to that mantra, that will be your focus again. So this should be as effortless as possible. The mantra isn't forced. You're not actually saying it. You're allowing it to repeat. And once you get into the habit of doing this, you'll understand and see that it kind of has its own, um, I wouldn't say sentience or whatever, but it is its own entity.
Right.
So so for 20 minutes, you will pretty much for 17 minutes.
And you said
So
not to verbalize it, just keep it like internally verbalized.
yep, just keep it, and it'll sound depending upon the day. It sounds different. And you'll experience some really, once you get into these lower levels and different thought waves and stuff like that, you experience, once you get into this transcendental state, different things. I've had some pretty interesting experiences where I've seen and felt things and almost experienced hallucinogenic um, little trips, I guess.
Right.
It just depends.
Yeah.
But always, I always feel refreshed and just clean afterwards.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, you'll see. And the mantra itself, as you're doing it, it changes. Sometimes like you get into such a transcendental state that the mantra changes and morphs into, it almost sounds like a completely different word, or it morphs into something that you have no idea, and you actually even for a moment forget what it is.
Like a foreign
And
language
this stuff,
almost.
yeah, and like with that one that I gave you, you forget and you lose track of what is the beginning and what is the end. So sometimes it'll become dojin, dojin. And this is with all the mantras. It kind of just, the lines begin to blur.
Right.
So, so you do that for like 17 minutes, and then like your little alarm goes off. And I wouldn't set it for a full 20. I'd set it for like 17. Your alarm goes off, and at that point, you're going to start to come out of the meditation. So at that point, you stop the mantra, and you, much like the beginning, you just sit there. Except for instead of just a moment, 1 minute, you're going to sit there for 2 minutes. And at this point, you're going to reorient yourself to coming back into the world, so that it's not a shock to you or anything like that. You're slowly going to, you're that pebble, you're going to slowly float back up to the surface
Mm-hmm.
and come into more conscious levels of consciousness. And so during this last 2 minutes, maybe the first minute, you just keep your eyes closed and stuff like that. After that, you're going to slowly open your eyes, not even all the way, just a little bit. And then you're like, and it's crazy because once you get into these deeper states of consciousness, you kind of lose track of where you are, what you're doing, and all of that. So like you open your eyes a little bit and you're kind of reminded, oh yeah, I'm actually sitting in my car, or I'm sitting, in my room. Like you lose track of your physical body. So sometimes this is definitely necessary, the reorientation process. So by the end of the 2 minutes, though, you've come out of it completely, and you're reoriented back to reality.
Nice. Nice.
So yeah, I would suggest. I mean, that's anybody interested in mantra meditations and stuff. That's definitely a good place to start out. And
And that's
it's
definitely, as far as like transcendental, that's like kind of like the first way to get into it, essentially.
uh, yeah. I mean that actually is the process of transcendental meditation.
Okay.
Now they have more advanced forms of things that they do that kind of add on to that, but that is the core of all their practices.
Right. Okay. You did mention though. You said you had a couple crazy experiences with it. I
Um,
wasn't trying to interrupt, but I was like, "Ooh, that sounds cool." Like, if you
yeah.
had anything to share.
I mean, there's been times that you kind of lose track of, like I said, your physical form and where you are and things like that, and you kind of are um, just a consciousness at that point, and you may experience. I've experienced things, colors and lights and swirling effects and things like that, and things that definitely are metaphysical in nature. I don't know what, and other times you'll see things, or things that or things will pop into your mind that you haven't thought about in 20, 30 years, you know.
Right.
And
Like you unlock
yeah,
memories.
yeah, and honestly, I just try to take note of those things and think about them once I'm out of the meditation, because sometimes, you'll be thinking about something or doing something, especially creatively, where you're creating some sort of art or something, and you might be getting like a writer's block or on a song or something, and you're getting stuck on a certain part, and you'll do a meditation, and like during that time, just sometimes everything becomes clear, and when you come out of that, you're like, oh, I can do this, I can do that, or something that you're trying to resolve, some sort of issue or problem you're having, it'll just become perfectly clear. So it's good to take note of those things, and I wouldn't know how much value to put to them, but definitely take note and just allow things to be what they are. But yeah, I've experienced some crazy things, and like I said, the mantra itself, that can be a little creepy. Sometimes that'll switch around on you and change completely, and especially when you first start.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. There's this on YouTube. There's this video, and it was a Woody Allen movie, and Jeff Goldblum was in it. And I think he calls Woody Allen up, and he's like, I forgot my mantra, I forgot my mantra. And it's kind of an inside joke and a little jab towards Transcendental Meditation, but like when you first start out, it is a nonsensical word, so it's not something that like penguin or something that you're like, oh yeah, I definitely know what it is.
Right.
You do kind of forget it. And in the beginning, you do kind of doubt sometimes that you're even doing it the right way.
Right.
You're like, is that even the right word or something like that? Just know though that doesn't matter. I mean, it could be any word whatsoever.
Right.
That has no attachments to it. But yeah, the mantra itself sometimes will fade, become stronger, or more distant, and just let it be whatever it is. That's the beauty of it, honestly.
Is Woody Allen even still kicking?
I believe so. I think he made a movie a few years ago.
Did he? I remember that one something about like a scorpion, something scorpion, and he got hypnotized, and he was investigating his own like jewel thievery. He was a detective, and sent to this like job to investigate a jewel thief, and turns out he was the jewel thief. He was hypnotized, and I don't know, he kept like being like, well, the only prints here are my prints, but because I'm investigating the scene, that's why my prints are here. It was, I don't know, it was kind of a neat movie. Like, I remember seeing it when I was real young, and it was boring, but the older I've gotten, like, I'm like, that actually, the concept was kind of cool, because it was like Scanner Darkly. He investigated himself, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I've never seen that one, but it sounds interesting.
Yeah, I don't know, it was just random when you said Woody Allen. um
Yeah.
I did have a couple of other questions, not too much. Like, what are your opinions on, like, because we kind of delved into a little bit, and it as far as like commercialization of meditation, but honestly, that's been going on since, heck, like, I know way back in the 30s they kind of had like spiritualism movement and all that, and in like the 60s was kind of like a second wave of like a new age. Everything was new age and up and coming, and um
Yeah.
what do you think about, like, because everything's on an app nowadays? What do you think about
Mm-hmm.
meditation apps? Are they like a good thing, perhaps, for getting people into it, or like what's your opinion on it, man?
I'm kind of mixed feelings. For one, like you were talking about, especially like the 20s and 30s when like Theosophy was out and Christian Science and things like that. I think the reason for the commercialism sometimes is exclusivity. You know, that they want to be the only ones that have this method or this particular way.
Right,
And if you want to learn that method or that way, you kind of have to go through their gates. And in a way, I think that allows them to filter and kind of pick and choose and make sure that the people that are doing it are the right people,
right,
or that have a genuine interest in it. But on the reverse side of the coin, I think sometimes it's definitely commercialism. There's money to be made, and it's a necessary evil, and ultimately people want money.
right.
So, and then sometimes I think they kind of sell out in a way. So I don't know. But as far as like the meditation apps and stuff like that, I think anything that kind of gets people working on themselves spiritually and metaphysically and physically is a good thing. I
Right.
mean, if it gets you, and it can be a valuable tool. If it gets you meditating, you know, twice a day, and it's what keeps you on track with all those things. It's definitely a tool. Or a guided meditation itself, you know, it sets you in the mood, and it can definitely be beneficial. But just don't allow yourself to become a sheep, pretty much.
Right.
There are some really cool apps out there. One of them I would suggest to your listeners. It's it's a really small app. I don't think it's very popular, but it's called the Mindfulness Bell,
Uh-huh.
and I think you hung out with me on different occasions where
Yeah, I recall
it's
it.
gone off. Yeah, so like mine, I have the setting just once approximately every hour. Um, it just goes off, and it's just a little boom. And what it does is for you to take just a moment and become mindful, and take note to where you are, what you're doing, what is your current state of mind, and to just it's a nice gentle reminder to be mindful. And honestly, when it goes off, it's not exactly an every hour, it's an approximate time, and you can set it to whatever you want. But when it goes off sometimes, I swear it's at the most needful time. Sometimes you'll be in traffic, or you'll be, you know, having some sort of escalated conversation with somebody,
Yeah.
and you'll actually be getting, you know, physiologically upset or angry, or where you're holding on to tension, and then that little thing goes off, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I probably shouldn't be reacting the way I am. I probably shouldn't be holding on to these things. So that's something
Spiritual
I've found to be,
discomfort.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, we all need a little reminder sometimes, because the practice of mindfulness itself is something that it's a struggle,
Well, I feel
because we,
too, honestly, not even so much, even like not even so much a negative situation, but I think with this American way, especially, you know, in America and stuff, because we're both in America, but like it's very rush, 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 and I believe like I find myself doing it that I disconnect emotionally and spiritually sometimes when it's like, oh, I have to work 50 hours this week. I got to go, 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 and
you know,
you make yourself disconnect almost in a way, and you think it's a healthy thing to do, to like, oh, I'm disconnecting so I can do my job better, and I sometimes it you look back on it and you're like, wow, where did last week go? And it's like, oh, I was disconnected, kind of like the movie Click, you know, almost.
yeah, yeah. Honestly, and I would suggest it to all your listeners. Something that ties into meditation is mindfulness. And if you want, I'll take just a moment to discuss that.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Mindfulness itself. So mindfulness is pretty much, instead of, it's the opposite of what you were discussing, where you're kind of just zoned out and not paying attention. It really is bringing yourself to the present moment, and focusing on, okay, what am I doing? What is my state of mind? What am my level of consciousness? And like we were discussing earlier, like walking meditations and stuff like that. Those are mindfulness exercises where they're bringing themselves to, okay, my left foot's going down, my right foot's going down. You hear the crunch of leaves. There's a bird in the background. Oh, look, a squirrel just ran by. That really encapsulates the essence of being mindful. So, kind of a modern day thing to create normal, instead of like zoning out and just, you know,
Disconnect.
letting your consciousness, yeah, disconnect. Um, Bring yourself into the present moment, into that mindfulness. Something I like to do when I discuss with people mindfulness is doing dishes. You know, you can look at it like, oh man, I got all these dishes to do. Or you can turn it into an awareness exercise, a mindfulness exercise,
I ain't gonna lie.
where you're
I
like,
love doing dishes.
yeah, man, and it can definitely be turned into a meditative practice. So, like, you have the water going, and you're experiencing the sound of the water, and you're smelling the bubbles, and you're putting your hands in to do stuff, and you're feeling the warmth of the water, and experience it for what it is, and be there in the moment. Don't try to escape it like, oh, I hate dishes. Whatever it is, sometimes you have to endure discomfort or pain. Joe Rogan actually had a guest on. He's an artist of some sort. I think he made him a T-shirt. You probably know who he is. But he was saying his psychiatrist,
Was he a
he was talking to him and
Japanese
stuff.
fella?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And he had said
I know exactly who you're
he
talking
gave him
about.
this. Yeah, he gave him this bit of advice: lean into discomfort.
Yeah.
And they were talking about like what does that even mean? But like truly, it's like something. Okay, I'm having to do this. There's no way around it.
Yeah, because he was
I'm gonna.
nervous on the way to the interview, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember. That was
Yep.
a cool
So
episode, dude.
yeah, I don't think I got to catch the whole thing, but that in the beginning really stood out to me. Lean into discomfort.
Right.
And with martial arts and stuff like that, that's much like the Zen. It's like you're experiencing all these cramps in your legs and stuff like that. Just allow it to be. Now, like you know, the Shaolin and Hung Gar and things like that, where it's harder forms of kung fu and stuff like that. They actually, it's like when you're experiencing discomfort and stuff like that, in some way they believe that it's actually making you stronger. That
And
your
it
ability to
it
endure these
really is
things.
though, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. Because you grow and you adapt, and I mean, in a way, it does. You eventually get used to these things, and you know, you toughen up to them, or you raise yourself to a level that they no longer bother you. I mean, either way, they kind of force you to evolve and to grow.
Exactly. Um, I think I had like one more. Well, actually, I think I got two more. Like just because a lot of people, especially because like I got a decent fan base in like Australia and I can't remember like outside of the states. I have a decent fan base in Australia, but as far as like you said earlier, growing up in the South and stuff, like I grew up Christian and stuff, and a lot of people they get spooked out by it, especially where we have like more of a Western mindset. And I'm not demonizing Christianity or nothing, but a lot of people feel like they're tapping into like tapping into something demonic, or and I've even heard people go as far as saying that when you do yoga like poses that you're making sigils and opening up your body to things. And I've always looked at
Yeah,
meditation and I'm like, I've never seen a negative. I've never heard a crazy negative story of man. I was meditating one time and I got possessed. Like I never hear that story. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Now I will say this: there are certain practices, even in the realm of meditation, that definitely kind of get into a darker realm of things.
So there is a warning
Um,
to be had slightly.
yeah, yeah. Not so much with like any of the things we've really discussed, but there are like like Tumo meditation, which is like a breathing. It's kind of like the whole awakening the Kundalini and stuff like that.
You said
If you
Tuma?
physiologically and I think it's called Tumo, Tummo,
Okay.
and it's a lot of witches when they get to a certain level and they're getting into some really interesting stuff. They practice it as well, where they're gathering energy, and I think it's like the heat of the fire, in your belly
Mm.
that you're kind of drawing all that energy to. Um,
Le-
and it's a very intense exercise, and it definitely heats you up and stuff like that. But some people think that it'll like spontaneously awaken the Kundalini, and so stuff like that. I mean, you definitely got to use caution towards. And
Which I don't know. I mean,
the,
I've kind of got like not delved into it myself, like physically practicing it, but I have kind of studied it, like awakening the Kundalini, and there's Kabbalistic ways of doing that too, like the 33rd degrees of your spinal cord into Golgotha, which would be your skull, where the pineal gland. You know, I've I've
yeah,
looked at it. I haven't done it, but
yeah.
I don't think so. They believe that there's like a super quick, easy way to get there.
I mean, just people, honestly, they just get into way deeper than they should be. They're not physiologically, much like the yogis, their neurological systems aren't prepared for it. And that's when you hear stories of people having Kundalini awakenings that are bad and people start to go crazy and stuff like that. That's what it is most of the time, is people getting in way deeper than, they jump into the deep end of the pool and they don't even know how to swim yet.
Yeah.
It's like, so, yeah, a lot of stuff like that. And there's other things as well that we really haven't gotten into, like different types of astral projecting types of meditation. And
Which we
there's,
can get into it, man, if you want. There's no
um,
rush.
I mean, no, we can just talk about it for a moment because I'm not, like, I've never done any astral projection meditations. I've messed around with it a little bit, but not as a form of meditation.
We can
But
always we could do an episode just on astral projection, like another episode one day, you know.
yeah, I mean, I'm somewhat limited as far as my knowledge in that. I've messed around with it a little bit,
Okay.
and I've had a few different experiences, but probably not enough to fill an entire segment.
Right, right. Yeah,
but
that's
but
cool.
but but as far as like the stigmatism around it, I could see why there is that. So there's that, the dark arts and things like that, or the negative reactions people have had to certain types of meditation. There's that reason. And then I think there's just a stigmatism in general. The Bible does talk about not getting into divination, certain types of divination, and familiar spirits and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's the element of unknown that people automatically like. They see that it's associated with certain things and they're just like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with that. But as far as meditation and Christianity and Catholicism and stuff like that, I think it's just a lack of understanding,
Right.
because there's multiple times in the Bible where you're actually told to meditate.
See,
um,
that's what I thought I remembered, is that like Jesus would meditate sometimes.
yeah, if you remember one of the more popular stories, Jesus going into a 40-day fast up in a mountain, and he was meditating and the devil came and tempted him.
Yeah,
I'm sure you
told
remember
told
that.
him jump off the tower or whatever, or the mountain or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah, that the angels would catch
yeah.
him. Yeah.
But I mean, if you look, if it was evil, why would Jesus be doing it?
Right.
you
Exactly.
know?
Exactly.
And not only that, but there's a few other times biblically that it's talking about something that it really is a meditation. Like it's talking about prayer, for example, to pray without ceasing, you know. And if you look at that phrase, that means that you're doing it all the time. No matter what you're doing, where you're at, you are praying.
Right.
And to me, that is that whole mindfulness and meditation, a wakeful, alert meditation, where like you infuse that into your entire life. You get on that level and you try to stay on that level.
Right. And
To me, that's like a
I think too, people
go.
forget the actual, like, meaning of the raw word Christian is to be Christ-like, and if Jesus is telling you, "Hey, I meditate," and to be Christian is to be Christ-like, walk in His footsteps, I would imagine, listen to His words. He says, "Hey, I meditate." You should probably meditate also. I would think, just with the
Yeah,
actual etymology of the word Christian, to be Christ-like.
yeah. And I mean, what my message to Christians out there that kind of have a negative outlook on meditation and stuff is to think about the verse in the Bible that talks about knowing a tree by the fruit that it bears. It's like, okay, this form of meditation or something, what is coming of it? Is it good? Is it evil? Is it making this person a better person? They're more loving towards people. They're more patient and kind. Or is it making them evil? Are they treating people poorly because of it? Are they doing bad things? And that's one way to know the true intention and effect of something is like what is it bringing into the world?
Right.
So that would be my challenge to them would be to look at things and experience it. I mean, and if it gets to a point where it's asking you to do something that you don't feel comfortable with, then yeah, you don't want to compromise your own beliefs and your own dogmatism for it.
Right. And
Just go
honestly,
follow your intuition.
I think that's with any spiritual path. Like, I've had people try to talk to me about certain spiritual paths. I did a podcast here recently on it was a Ouija board podcast, like talking about a buddy of mine. It was a girl. She was messing around with Ouija boards, and like, I don't know, like, I own Ouija boards and I've used them and stuff, but like, she was like, yeah, like trying to talk to me about it and stuff. And then, like, I just looked at how negative her life was. And I think that's with any practice. I'm not saying if you use a Ouija board or something that crazy would happen. But I think, honestly, when someone's trying to, like, get you into something, just kind of look at, like, their life
Yep.
without being judgmental, but going, do they really have that healthy of a lifestyle that I should be delving
Yeah.
into what they're delving into? You know what I mean? Which I know
Oh yeah.
you. I know you, and you have like a good lifestyle, I've never mistrusted you, but in general, I think, dogma aside, in whatever religion or spiritual path you're on, I think that anyone should just look at someone when someone is presenting a new spiritual path or a mystery school or whatever, or religion, like, hey, I'm trying to offer this to you, like trying to see if you're interested. I usually like to look at the person offering it, and if I know them, especially, like, are they living a healthy lifestyle? Is it actually making their life better, or is it making it worse? You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, and some people do have chaotic lives, and that's just things beyond their control. The people that they are their parents or their children, and you can't control all that. But how do they deal with that adversity? You know, it, do they get sucked into it, and next thing you know, they're screaming and fighting, or are they the calm in the midst of the storm?
Right.
You're definitely right. Look at their lives and how they deal with things, and because I've had people try to get me into different things, and it's like, much like you said, yeah, if that's what the end result is, I really don't want to have any part of that.
Right. I won't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, and I mean, it may have some credence to it. I mean, it might be a good practice, but it just might be the wrong person practicing it, or they're not getting into the deeper levels of it, and they're not at that level spiritually to really get all of the benefits from it because they keep themselves, you know, back down to the earth. You know,
Okay.
they got so many negative habits; it's kind of preventing them from ever evolving past that point.
Right. Um, well, I have one more question, and it's nothing too deep.
Okay.
Um, and I guess we'll wrap it up unless you got anything other on your mind. I mean, there is no rush. If you do have anything else you'd like to delve into, Anything?
No, I'm pretty good, I think.
Okay. I'll end it on a physical, non-spiritual thing, and this is just like when you meditate, like a lot of people use incense or certain mats. On a physical level, it's a silly question, but I like to end it on a silly note. Is there any like certain like perfume of incense if you use incense, or a certain brand of mat, or anything suggesting like what is your process when you meditate, like when you're at home comfortable and you can actually use any other tools, I guess physical tools, if there is tools you can use. I know some
Yeah.
some people use singing bowls, some people use incense, some people use mats, some people use, you know, what do you use, if there is anything, or any suggestions to anyone out there getting into it?
Okay. So most of the time, honestly, when I do my meditations, it's usually before work and stuff like that. So I'm usually in my car. But if I'm at home and, in my own area that I have set aside for that kind of stuff, the only thing I really have that I like to regularly do is I do use incense. And I kind of go back and forth between two different ones. And one of them is Nag Champa, which is Indian incense, and you can find that at a lot of places. It's kind of sweeter, um, and I guess kind of sweet would be the the overall way to explain it. And then I use HEM is the brand. They have Dragon's Blood, which is kind of a deeper, little more
It's heavier.
sharp. Yeah, it's heavier. It's a little sharper, a little more dense. Like the two complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
It's like
Um,
purple, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, theirs is like a dark brown or black,
Mm.
but only HEM brand. I've yet to find another brand that really, because it's based on like a palm resin, and a lot of these generic incense and stuff, it doesn't smell anything like it. So usually what I do is kind of, if I'm in my own space, if I'm preparing to do a Reiki session or something like that, I will, depending upon my mood, choose one of those, and it's probably just, that I the mind's equivalent of muscle memory, where you smell something, it automatically knows to prepare itself mentally and spiritually for what is about to go on. So with regular use, it's kind of like just a little reminder, like, hey, prepare yourself. We're getting ready to do something spiritual here. So those are honestly the only two things that I usually do. Um, Sometimes I do use music and stuff when I do Reiki, but with any of this stuff, you just gotta kind of find your own way, find what's comfortable for you. I would say find what has the most benefit. So, especially where we're so busy in life, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's thousands of types of meditation
Mm-hmm.
and practices. Find the things that you have affinity towards, that feel good to do, that you believe are helping you to become a better person, more calm, more stable, more mindful, and then incorporate those things. And then discard the rest. I mean, you don't have to, just because you've tried something, you don't have to keep it, you don't have to keep doing it.
I love it too because it's one of those things that they can't really take away from you. Like I've always said that
Yep.
no matter how dark of a place it is, like if you're in a prison cell or you're in a FEMA camp, like
Yeah.
they can't take away praying from you, and they can't take away meditation. Like certain things like that, they cannot take away from you. You can lose
That is so true.
everything in your life, and you still have your mind, your soul, and your body. You know,
Yep.
but
Yeah. That's so true. And honestly, I mean, they can do things to you, and you can experience different things, but your reactivity as well is something that how you react to it, people can't control. They can be trying to get a rise out of you and trying to get you angry and stuff, but if you choose not to react in that way, they can't do anything about it.
yep. All right, man. I appreciate it. Do you have any last words or anything?
No, just to suggest everyone to be as mindful as they can, and to bring positivity and love into the world. And there's enough negativity, that's for sure.
Hey, it's a awesome episode, man. Be awesome to have you back again. I know we've talked back and forth about other episodes and stuff, and you're the only reoccurring one. So, but
Well, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate it. I feel honored.
awesome, man. I appreciate it too.
Okay.
But I'm gonna cut it off here, and then I'll talk to you.
Okay, sounds good. Be well, everyone.
We are as a people inherently and historically opposed to secret society, opposed to secret oaths, opposed to secret proceedings, secret proceedings. No official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.